This is the second video you need to complete homework 2. Specifically, it will help you do the last two problems of homework 2. What is this about? This is about word problems. So let's get right into it. Example 1. Suppose that the function y of x equals negative x squared plus 6x plus 6 represents the number of people in millions that have x number of iPods, where x is an integer from 0 to 6. First question, identify the dependent and independent variable. So let me tell you what that means. Typically, the dependent variable is y, and it always is the variable that is solved for. Now, the independent variable is the other variable that you haven't written down. In other words, it's x. You have control over x, it's independent. If you give me an x, I'll tell you a y. That's the basic idea. So in this case, let's do that. The dependent variable for this word problem is y, but what does that represent? It represents the number of people in millions that have x iPods. And then the independent variable is x. It's the number of iPods. Okay, that's it for part A. Part B says evaluate y of 3, and then you have to provide a verbal explanation, what that means. Okay, well, I'm putting that t there. Y of 3 is equal to the following. You're plugging it into the function up there. Negative 3 squared plus 6 times 3 plus 6. Well, when you work that out, you get 15. And what this stands for is 15 million people have 3 iPods exactly. So again, if you hand me the number of iPods where the number of iPods is any number from 0 to 6, I'll tell you the number of people that have that many iPods. Okay, that's the end of that example. Let's move to the last piece that I want to go over with you, which is this. Important tips about your last homework problem. Okay, your last homework problem, when you do it in homework 2, is about a rock falling from a certain height on the earth, and the height h in meters is given to you as depending on time, which they represented as x. So x is your independent variable because height depends on your independent variable, x. So for example, here's an example height function. H of x equals 28 minus 4.9x squared. One of the questions that you will be asked in this last homework problem is to find when does the rock strike the ground. Well, here's how to do that. So when you're asking for when, you're basically being asked to find time, because that stands for when, and time is represented as x. Okay, well, the ground, what does that mean? That means that h equals 0. That's what that means. So we're going to put this together. We're going to let h be 0, and we're going to solve for x in that equation, and that will give us the time that causes h to be 0. So we're going to solve for x. So when you do that, you subtract 28 from both sides of the equation, and then you divide by negative 4.9. So when you do that, you get x squared equals 28 over 4.9, and then you take the square root of both sides. And I'm only going to write a positive root, because not plus or minus, because we're talking about time. So I'm going to take the square root of that, and this is approximately 2.39 seconds. So I think that's it for this module. So get started on the last two homework problems.